I watched all the 5 recordings that we did 5 years ago or so. I was blown away by what we discussed. I thought that those episodes were so good. I was going to ask you if you think that we can even do something deeper than that, or maybe we can't.
I think we can. We're 5 years in further in time, so I'm sure we can get deeper than that.
5 years is a lot of time and a lot has happened, but let's see where it goes. If
Yeah.
if there was one message that you would like to start with, that would be like a hook, and you would ask people, stay here because you need to hear this, what would that be?
Mm. Okay. I mean, so many messages, but really, I have what happens with me is I get the feeling and then the word and then the words come. So I would say my message to people is that you you are doing it exactly right. You are exactly as you are, exactly as you're living is a highly necessary path on this planet to serve collective evolution. So no matter what struggles you're going through, no matter what you're facing, no matter how broken you feel, how without, how left behind, just the fact that you're feeling that, having that experience, and are strong enough to still be here means you're a vital part of the collective evolution of the entire planet.
Yeah,
And there's the other side to the struggle.
I like the word combination collective growth, did you say? Collective evolution.
Evolution.
And I remember our conversation those 5 years ago. No, I don't remember. I just remember because I just watched our videos.
Watch that.
You asked me a question, how I start when I coach. And I said I always listen to the language and I start with the language.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you start with the body, feelings, and experiences. And I loved how you formulated it. You said from the language, it goes into the body, and then from the body, it comes out as a language. I
Yeah.
felt those are probably not the precise words that you said, but I thought it was great the way you said it. Mara, and what are your memories? You said you also watched. What do you remember of those conversations, and how would you like to have this conversation go?
I think the magic of those conversations were that we actually weren't trying to do anything really with them, but the challenge or the task was to just do a live on Facebook. We were like, let's do it together because we're both nervous about going live on Facebook.
Mhm.
And we said, let's just see where we go.
Yes.
And we knew each other enough because we were in the coaching together to have some questions of where to go. And then obviously the conversation led us wherever it led us. So I
Mhm.
think that was the magic was we weren't trying to accomplish anything but to be curious about each other and share in that experience. And so we could start the same place in this conversation, and we have more of a framework because you have an audience you're directing it to, and you know the audience. I don't know your audience. So you can certainly craft questions you feel will draw your audience in, and then we can just we can just see where it goes. And like you said, I know a theme will emerge. So when you're editing it and want to market it, you'll know what you're doing.
Yeah, I like that you said it this way because usually I really prepare for all these conversations and interviews. But this time, after I watched those videos, I wanted to flow just like it flew then. I'm glad that you
Mm-hmm.
said it. But we are 5 years wiser, and I would use another word, at least I am 5 years more damaged or traumatized. You know
Mm-hmm.
about it because you are the Mara who I had the conversation with before I started this podcast. I mentioned your name in one or maybe even a few episodes of this podcast when it was named differently. It was named Ilze Transformations. And so this is the Mara who coached me. And I had a really nice kickstart for this re-emerging, I would say. Have you experienced anything traumatizing or falls during these 5 years?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Yeah. Well, my own work with plant medicine got much, much deeper. And I started serving in a larger way, as you also know. But the more I worked with it personally, the more I had to connect to things I didn't even realize were traumas from my childhood, and actually recognize where traumas happened and how that was shaping current behavior that I thought was just something wrong with me, or why can't I get this right, or what's going on. Um, and so I've had a whole period of like actually going back into the past and piecing things together up until the present. And I had a pretty traumatic, although it was brief enough that I was able to really see the gift that was happening. And I was also working very deeply, as I said, with ceremony and consciousness and plant medicine. But I was in a very abusive relationship. It was only 2.5 months, but it was very quickly like deep into what I call the psychotic funhouse of trauma
Uh-huh.
and a lot of emotional abuse. And when I suddenly realized I was there in the middle of this deep, deep, like vast pit that could have just kept sinking further and further, I was like, wow, I need to, something is being shown to me that wants to really get a deep, deep wound. It wants to get healed. And this person showed up in like physical form as the wound.
Yeah. That was my realization as well, because I had a very difficult divorce situation that lasted for
Yeah.
years, not just months. And I got out of it at the point where I made a decision that I will just walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I will not fight for what's right. I will just walk away because suddenly I understood that everything that I need is within me and I can start from where I am. And I have already the lessons that I need. It's interesting that sometimes we fight for an idea. And I was thinking also about the wars that we have in the world.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about those things, what are we fighting for?
Yeah.
Is it maybe better to walk away?
Yeah. I have a belief about war that it can only persist for as long as we're letting it exist inside our hearts. So, war itself is a frequency, a vibration. Everything on this in this realm that we call Earth is a vibration. Joy, happiness, prayer, grief, and including these big things that look like global actions. And so war is a frequency, and it can enter our hearts and plant seeds just as much as everything else can. And that's how it continues to grow and evolve. It has its own desires for evolution and to grow and to become its own, it has its own path. just as we as humans have our own path. And so the way it feeds, if you will, is to get into the heart and start shifting the frequency of our own hearts, which for the scientific minded, our hearts actually produce a magnetic field that's expands further out from our bodies than our brains. I think it's about 3 feet. I could be wrong, but you can actually look this up and see that science. So what we're actually feeling and the way and the emotions, which are frequencies that we carry in our hearts, push out into the world as a field, a magnetic field. And so when war is really strongly in there, we're going to see it, everywhere we go, because it's in this magnetic field around us, 3 feet around us. And so the way out of war, which sounds easy, right? Like let's just walk away. It's very easy, and it's one of those easier said than done. And yes, but yes, you actually shift the frequency. You walk out of the frequency. You walk away. You shift into what it is you actually want to feel. And the sort of meta idea being, if every heart could do this collectively at once, where would war be? Of course, it doesn't work like that. One person shifts and one person shifts and one person shifts, and it goes up and down and has these big cycles. But that's where, for myself, where I really believe the work is in shifting the frequency inside our hearts.
I agree that it starts with us, and it's so easy it's so simple but not easy. That's
Yeah,
probably
simple but not easy. That's the way to say it.
yeah. And also because we are so culturally conditioned, because we are being told what is right and what is wrong to the extent that we don't question.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think the key is to question more often than we do. Is this true? Is this really true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another component is the personal responsibility as we're exploring that. Is this true? Is this really true? The most difficult part for all of us is when we have to look at what we see as an enemy or something or someone who has harmed us deeply, and decide to see our part in that pain
Yeah.
and question whether they really are this evil, what we like to call evil, and to start to shift that perspective is really, really scary for most of us, because it does rock the foundation of what we've always held as our reality and our own goodness as human beings, and right, that sense of right and wrong that we don't question.
Yeah, and our egos, because the ego is
Yeah.
to protect us there. Yeah, that's what and also the focus. I had to divorce. There were signs long before that it wouldn't work out, and I just closed my eyes and tried not to look. And when I was hurt, and then I had to admit that it is over, in order to disconnect my heart, let's say, or just emotionally, I started looking for the like evil things or bad things within my former husband, and that helps to disconnect. But because I had that very painful experience, I had to walk away, and then all the painful things came up, and I started looking for solutions to heal. So I think I wouldn't have healed myself. I would have continued putting band-aids one over the
Mm-hmm.
other, in layers. I don't know if that made sense, but I just tried to communicate. But
Yeah.
basically, I was channeling, focusing that negative, that forceful energy onto my former husband, so that I can walk away from him. Otherwise, it was
Yeah.
difficult to walk away. I had to make him look worse than I
Hmm.
would want to feel about him. Yeah. Otherwise, it would be too.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand. I understand. And again, I had the brief version of yours, which was years long, but I had to recognize my wounded girl was very much in love with his wounded boy, and to try to separate was terrifying to the wounded girl because she she actually felt like I would be abandoning her and denying her the right to love. She was like, she believed, and this young wounded girl inside of me, so I believed I could love this person out of their abusive patterns. And because that was the wound leading the show of, yes, I see this person as something you can't detach from because it's precious, it needs love, it needs to be held, it needs to be comforted. I understand their pain. How could I abandon them when I've been abandoned? How could I be the perpetrator of such a trauma back on him, and all of this kind of stuff? And luckily, I had a strong sister standing beside me who could kind of talk a bit sternly to me and say, but what is he doing to you? Is he looking at you that same way? Is he giving you that same type of love that you want to offer him? And maybe I don't know, because I'm not him. I don't know what he was feeling or thinking. I do believe in many ways he felt he was being loving and being in love. Um, but I realized what I'm getting from him is all my fears. Him telling me what he views as wrong with me, and everything I'm doing wrong, and every move I make is this, and how everything is like my existence is harmful to his state of peace was the
Yeah.
main message he was conveying to me. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not allowed to be if I stay with him. So I had to focus on that, what looks like his badness, in order to really separate and realize there's actual harm being done, and how I'm trying to love him well isn't gonna work here. So yeah, I understand what you were saying.
Yes, because I was listening to you as if you were speaking to me about me, because it started with that, where I was that nurturer and helper and space holder. And then I had actually the medical doctor who told me, well, you need to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
somehow didn't see. Mm.
Yes, this was a big breakthrough for me. My sister said, he's emotionally abusing you. She said it very sternly. And my first reaction was, who cares if I'm the one getting abused? I didn't say that out loud, but that was the first feeling that came up. And I didn't process it in the moment, but that was later when I was able to sit. I was like, wow, my first reaction was, who cares that I'm the one getting abused as long as no one else feels abused? Wow. And so that was like the big entry into what wanted to get healed.
But so you recovered then quickly after you left?
Yes, I mean, I don't know how to term like a recover quickly or give a time on it, because we recover as in our time as we're meant to recover. Because it was such a brief relationship, I was able to move on from him personally quickly.
Mhm.
But working with the wound takes its time. I feel lucky that I had that relationship in the time of my life I did, where I had such awareness of how to work with my emotions, and I was working deeply with ceremony teachers on really going deep into your emotions and healing these types of wounds. So I had a
Mhm.
lot of tools at my disposal, but there's still ways, and this was over a year ago that ended, that I'll be working with the wound. And I
Yeah,
think that's how it feels better, is working with rather than a recovery for me personally. Everyone else will feel differently about how to term it, because it's almost like also, I had leukemia as a child. We're
yeah,
never called cured, we're called in remission. So it's like
yeah,
you're always then working with your health, you're always working with your body. So I guess I'm in remission from the from this relationship,
yeah,
but I'm working with that wound, and rather than and letting the wound be an ally and inform me versus take over and then be like this demon I have to battle.
hmm. For me, it was the health consequences were physical, very serious, very a
Mm-hmm.
lot of pain, autoimmune conditions, and that's because of tolerating it for years and not admitting. And I think it is important for the listeners to know that even if you are in this coaching space, or if you are a leader, you identify as a strong person and you understand with your brain a lot of things, there are aspects in our lives or just stuff that comes up that we didn't realize it could happen to us because we think that, oh, I'm strong. Oh,
Yeah.
I know it all. Oh, I have studied this theory and that theory or that modality. So it happened to the both of us.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, exactly. It's true for everyone across the board. No one is, each person is on their path of discovery of yourself. So even like the Buddhist monks sitting in meditation for hours a day, they still have their stuff come up. They have different tools of how to work with it. So yeah, we're all humans. And I want to include any men listening in this as well, to recognize you may be going through very difficult relationships and maybe feeling abused in certain ways. That's normally a female space to talk about, but recognizing that men go through this just as much as women go through this.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about sexuality because we talked a lot about that, how those wounds contributed to the experience, to the painful experience we both had.
I've been reading a lot recently about the nervous system itself, and there's a lot of new research, or new conversation rather, I should say, new conversation happening around trauma and the nervous system. So far, I've read about women. I haven't read about on the male side yet, but how the woman's nerve, when we're children, our nervous system is learning how to respond to the reality around us, the circumstances around us, and how to maintain keeping us alive. So what's safe, what's not safe, and how what responses keep you out of harm's way, what responses create harm. And for women, the nervous system starts to learn very early on. For most women, I'm not going to say this is all women, but most women learn that they learn that they are a sexual being, a sexual object, a sexual danger, anything about their sexuality is somebody else's before they even understand what it is to be a sexual being, and learn to start to form their own relationship to sex, to sexuality in their own time, in their own way. And as their heart wants to feel it, as their body wants to feel it, as their nervous system wants to feel it, they learn about sex and safety very early on, and how sometimes being safe means being more sexual than you want to be. Sometimes being safe means having to divorce from sexual feelings, but women are usually forming their sexual responses relating to trying to feel safe in environments where they're not allowed to discover what their sexuality is as a child. That way we've learned to be sexually before we even knew we were sexual beings is going to be feeding how we're relating to the partner in our life.
What you just said, that we grow up in the cultural learning certain ways, especially what it means to feel safe and what not. I can talk about that experience where I was in my marriage where I didn't maybe I subconsciously, probably I realized that I didn't feel safe. I know that I did realize, but I wouldn't verbalize it. I wouldn't admit it even to myself. However, now when I'm completely out of it and I can talk about the things, I have learned so much more about how powerful my sexuality can actually be that I had not realized at one point. And that time I was 50 when we talked. Uh, yeah, it's just so interesting how more and more I have to admit that I am so conditioned culturally just because of the body that I was born in. How about you? Did you also learn anything about your sexuality through that difficult relationship?
Yes, I had been working on my understanding my sexuality for some time, even before I met you. Actually started out coaching people around sexuality
Mhm.
um, in my 20s. So I had been on a process of understanding what was conditioning, what was really mine. But again, this goes to show, like we just said, you can be working in this field, an expert in the field, and you can still be blind to some of the things going on with you, because some of those really deep early formation ways, again, and this is talking about the nervous system, which is helping how we function on such an unconscious level, that it's one of those things, I guess, we keep discovering as we go through life, and it's an ongoing discovery of who we truly are, who I truly am, and what's the story that I've decided to say is true, coming from others, coming from society. And it's this ongoing unraveling of the fantasy that this world presents versus the true self. So in that relationship, I had stuff that I was already conscious of come up. And then the awareness of that this was an abusive relationship, and that my first response was, well, who cares if I'm the one being abused? When I was processing the relationship, I did, of course, also look at my own sexuality and my responses, and the way I behaved, and was recognizing some of it was most likely also tied into my wound. And so, yeah, I don't have the full unraveling yet, but definitely this what I just read about how the nervous system learns its sexuality in order to keep itself safe so young. I've been just sort of diving back in with myself recently on this topic.
Yeah, I ask about it because that's what we talked a lot about. And you mentioned
Yeah,
that you were coaching around sexuality and intimacy at
yeah,
that time. What I just heard what you
yeah.
said, that as you were processing what happened and you were remembering your responses, that's when I hear responses, I'm thinking language. And I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's exactly what I meant when I said that I learned how much more powerful I can be because I looked back at how I used to talk and speak. and how I can
Mhm.
communicate in words today. If you can talk about things openly in your intimacy, it
Yes,
also empowers you to talk powerfully about other topics, such as money, which we also discussed.
absolutely. When I said responses, I was in that moment thinking physiological responses, but it's true with the language as well. It's true with what words I would choose to share or not share, based on what was going on internally or what I believed was allowed or safe, or and on the larger scale outside of just that relationship. Yes, there's been times in just the past few months where I'll be speaking, sharing, and I'll think, back from even before that relationship, and I'll be like, oh, I wouldn't have said this, or I wouldn't have felt free to express this way, to speak this way, to even acknowledge the feelings also, I think is
Yeah.
a big piece of it. Like you were saying, our bodies do know. You said, I knew, but I was kind of ignoring the signals from my body.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, mine was brief, but I did lose 12 pounds in that time frame. And my nervous system, or my internal system, was so, I was actually like physically shaking. There was almost like a buzz going through my body, and I
Mhm.
felt unsteady when I walked, and I felt unsteady when I drove. I felt unsteady in my body, which was a very new feeling for me. I'm used to being very centered, grounded, especially doing sexuality work, like owning my physical expression, all of that. And when this wound was coming up, it was shaking. It was shaking me out of the places where there were still performance in that sense of confidence and groundedness,
Mhm.
versus like the true self, grounded and centered and confident.
I know exactly what you are saying. So I would like to talk now more about what you offer because you do work through the body. Because I was waiting for you to say that the responses you by saying responses you meant physical responses.
Yeah.
Left brain people, stay, you need to hear this because what got you here won't get you there. Because we
Yeah.
can analyze everything, but there are things that you cannot access verbally, just through the body, through deep, deep work, which is often not words. Talk about it.
Okay, sure. So when I'm working with anyone, and you know this too, I always start with having us take deep breaths together. Because our breath, how it was put to me once, and I love this analogy, is that our breath is the only thing we're really ever connected to. Thinking of, you know, the external world, what we're looking at, what's around us. Our breath is our main tool through everything. And it's always showing us the truth of who we are when we think of how we breathe when we're laughing, how we breathe when we're relaxed, how we breathe when we're angry, how we breathe when we're scared, how we breathe when we're in grief and sobbing. The breath is always being what we are with us and showing us what's actually the truth of what's actually going on. And we can all think of those moments where our breath started to behave differently than we were trying to portray ourselves. Let's say in moments of fear, in moments of performance, like when we know we're lying or putting on a show for others, but also moments where maybe we weren't aware we were trying to hide. After we get out of a conversation with someone or out of a situation, we suddenly or like have to exhale or notice ourselves breathing more deeply. And that's because our breath was responding to feeling unsafe, and we might not have even realized that until we left the situation. So these are all clues as to, let's say you leave a situation, you leave a conversation, and you suddenly realize yourself really breathing and or noticing your breath. That's a clue that there was something going on in that interaction that your system was resisting, acting against, not feeling safe inside of. And this actually goes deep into the sense of what safety even is. And we talked about this with this nervous systems learning how to feel safe in young girls and their sexuality. But sometimes even that sense of what safety isn't actually safe. It's just the best option.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of learning what is safety itself. And that can only come from inside the body. It really can't come from our external environment. The only way we ever truly know we're safe is that feeling. The body relaxes, the breath flow is easy, we can be observant without reacting. We can sometimes see both sides of things. I disagree with that, but that's really good. We can even be inside of a situation that should be appears triggering, but kind of recognize what we can get out of it, and we don't feel harmed. I remember a previous ex who I enjoy, and we're still friends. but someone said something to him in a bar once, and he got very upset. And I said, "Well," he said they offended me. And I said, "You can really only be offended if you get offended." So it's like those people could say anything to you, but if your internal system realizes it's not a threat, you're not actually offended. You're safe inside yourself. So that's what I feel like we as a collective humanity are trying to learn now. What is true safety? And when we can access that in the body through breath, through feeling our systems inside, and this is where it can get a little bit my work can go into that woo-woo realm, because we actually talk to the body. We allow parts of the body to speak to us. And there's different ways to do that. You just get silent and let the first thing that comes into your mind come out. People see images. You notice what part of your body feels a sensation. Or sometimes, as you and I both know, there's a deep blankness that comes. And so we work with, what are you feeling now? What's going on inwardly? Have people close their eyes, breathe, and feel, and then share what the experience is. And that's where the wisdom, who they truly are, is, and what their heart really wants, and how they really want to be in the world. And that's the first step, implementing how to actually do that. And again, feel safe. You can get that answer. I want to divorce my partner. I want to quit my job. I want to stop this behavior. And then there's, of course, steps to feel safe enough to really do that. Just owning the answer, feeling the answer. Even if the answer is, I don't know. Sometimes really allowing the I don't know without judging it or feeling like you have to always know what you're doing at every moment and what your next step is. It can be really freeing to be in the space. I don't know right now. I'm going to keep doing my usual routine, but allow the I don't know to be inside of that. And so that's how the foundation of the work is. That's where we start. And then we continue to go deeper and deeper from there to build the memory of safety inside the body now. so people can move forward as they really want to.
Yeah. To try to interpret this in the practical sense, what a practical person thinks they can achieve. I know it's hard, but can you try?
Sure. So if there's that sense of I'm not hitting my goals, I'm not achieving what I want to achieve, there's a barrier to me getting again to that next level, that is likely because all the ways you've learned how to get, as that saying is, what got you here won't get you there, all the ways you learn how to get here to the beautiful space you're in now of success is not going to get you through to the next step. And it's required of you, or where you want to get to, your desire, where your desire is leading you, is asking you to expand as a human being, to expand out of your comfort zone. I'm sure you know, if you've climbed any ladder or achieved any goals, you've had to expand out of your comfort zone each and every time. And when we really want to achieve, and it's usually an internal feeling when we think of success. I want X amount of dollars. I want this to be married. I want the good house. I want this kind of car. There's always a feeling driving that. How will you feel when you have these things? So what's driving you is a feeling versus a number or an achievement of something physical. And getting those things is great and amazing and should be celebrated. But you might have noticed that when you have gotten certain things you wanted, inwardly you still feel like you haven't achieved anything. Or inwardly you feel even worse, perhaps. Or inwardly you start to feel symptoms of depression, of anxiety, of that deep blank numbness of I got all the things, but I still feel deeply unhappy and dissatisfied. So that's when we start to see, what does your system really want? Because the true winning, if you will, is to have the feeling of winning, truly deep inside your bones, deep inside your system. The true achieving of achieving is to have that feeling of achievement. And so no matter what it is, the goal you're going towards, when you can bring that inner state of, yes, I really did achieve it. I really am successful. I really did get all the things, and it's inside of you. Then you're on a totally new playing field. And what you can achieve materially expands with that inner sensation.
Yeah. And for especially stubborn people like myself, or somebody who is like really deeply in denial, like I was, that coaching session with you, Mara, just one session was very effective. But what felt really good was that feeling of safety. And in a very silly way, that where I said, I don't feel anything. What do you feel? I feel blankness. And then what came up, I was afraid that there are expectations that I am supposed to feel something, but I don't feel anything. I feel blankness. And then acknowledging that it's okay to have that blankness, that nothing is expected from me, that it's funny, but that creates the inner safety that everything is good about me. I'm not somehow
Yeah.
damaged beyond repair, so to say.
I love to let people know that this is their actual wisdom. So what you're truly feeling, without when there are no expectations placed on you, that's your deep wisdom as a human being, is the experience you carry inside yourself. And so we pathologize it through many different ways in our society, and there are all these expectations of how we're supposed to show up.
Mm.
But those expectations are usually what creates the pathology. And it's not a simple, or it's a simple switch, but not an easy switch. But when we really recognize what I'm feeling is wisdom, what I'm feeling is actually what's right about the situation. My feeling inside of this situation is the one thing I can rely on. And that we learn how to actually use that.
Yes.
It really is a superpower.
How to use that. It sounds like it's difficult to explain, but it's directly applicable because
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you have that wisdom, I'd say unleashed. It's inside of you, but it's maybe blocked, and then it comes out. It just gets unblocked through the session, through working with you, and then you just go out and rise to the next level, let's say. Mm. I
Yeah.
looked, I looked at your website and where you guided me, that one link where you are hosting like a session about anger, releasing anger or something like that. And you were talking about how you see anger or rage. The word was rage you used as a fertile soil and source of
Yeah.
energy to grow something from it. I just wanted to ask you, what if I don't feel any rage? I'm also thinking about, is there anything wrong with me? Because I remember when I went through that situation, which was logically very unfair to me, and people who knew more, they tried to help me to release the anger and rage. And we bought plates, and I was breaking the plates to release the anger, which I didn't actually feel, but I was trying to
Hmm.
feel so that I just
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt anxiety, but I didn't feel anger because I felt compassion actually for my ex-husband, so
Yeah.
I didn't feel anger. And
Yeah.
I
So that,
still don't have rage and anger. Is there something wrong with me?
no, and I've been asked this question before. Rage, again, it's a something we place expectations on. We place expectations on rage itself and what it's supposed to look like, and we should be breaking plates and screaming and all of this stuff. But it doesn't have to show up that way.
Hmm.
Rage can be the very deep blank numbness.
Okay.
When I'm my rage is actually getting activated, I dissociate, so I
Hmm.
do go into that numb place as well.
Hmm.
Um, and then there are times where I can get angry in that traditional sense of what we think of as rage, and I can scream and yell. But when it's really like the deepest trigger of it, it's like I disappear and have to call myself back and then like release through what seems like a lot of grief, and like physical pain, like hunched up and like really letting my body process it. So rage itself can show up in all different ways. It's a sort of a blanket term we're using because a lot of people resonate with anger and being angry at and being in a state of war and angry at our political parties and angry at the economy and angry. So a lot of people really resonate with that traditional
Yeah.
sense of anger and rage. But it's our place of deepest feeling of unsafety is, I guess, another way I would put it. And when that's accessed, it can show up in all different types of ways, from the traditional breaking plates and screaming to the total numbness to deep grief, sometimes to just using humor all the time to deflect the deep feelings.
Hmm.
But the fertile soil of it is the system saying something's very wrong here. And when we can trust our system saying that to us, something is very, very wrong here, we can actually understand what's very wrong. How do I need to move? What is the state of being I want to be inside of that's not this? we can start to shift out of those frequencies of war, as we talked about earlier, and shift out of those frequencies, causing unconscious destruction to ourselves, to others. Unprocessed rage can show up as physical illness, body weakness, deterioration. A lot of women experience autoimmune disorders. I heard that women experience them more than men because there's this distrust with their own systems telling them what's right, what's wrong. So when we can trust our own systems, we can create that safe space for ourselves, which then radiates out and create that larger safe space for the collective.
Yeah. So you have that offer, and you are going to have that session on December 17th, I think you said, or 19th,
Yeah,
17th. Yeah.
tomorrow night. Yeah.
This will air sometime later,
Okay.
but you are probably going to have more of those, are you?
Yes, and there will be a replay. So I'll let my group know that I was in this podcast that's going to be airing later if people want access to it after the fact.
Mhm.
And I'll get that information to you.
Mhm. But you said you work with plant medicine and other ceremonies. Talk more about it, but before you do, you might not know. I, as I was looking for the ways to heal, I understood how plants have affected me not in a good way. And I went carnivore. I am on a carnivore diet. I practically don't eat any plants except I drink coffee. I do recognize that sometimes plant medicine can be used as medicine, but I don't use plants as nutrition. I saw that there was your partner in this ceremony. She was in the video. I saw there was oranges.
She's an herbalist, an ethnobotanist, and a chef. And so we're also doing a larger retreat for women only this time around at the end of January, where she'll actually be cooking the meals for us. But part of what she brings into the world as her personal medicine is education around food and how we're nourishing our bodies with what we eat. And she has a wide range of knowledge on different teas and herbs and mushrooms, not just psychedelic, and all different types of plants that you can use to create tinctures and teas and capsules and this and that to help the body process these emotions. Because Mother Earth herself, this planet Earth itself, way before Western medicine came onto the scene, we knew the plants were our personal pharmacy.
Mhm.
And if you go into the jungles, if you go into the forests and you sit with any tribes who still live as their ancestors lived thousands of years ago, they'll know exactly, you need this for this, here's this for that, you have an upset stomach, drink this, eat that, use this plant for a cut or a wound, it'll help the healing. And when you consider that we are animals of this planet, we developed Western medicine, we developed society, we developed all these things that are amazing and have so many beautiful qualities to them. And one of that was to really study what it means to, how can we manipulate and harness better for ourselves the sense of healing. Along the way, what got a little bit lost was just how much nature itself is that source of healing. And
Mhm.
most of our medicines today are compounds derived out of the plants. So we're still using the plants. We're just pulling out the compounds, pulling out their chemicals, and then putting them into different forms that don't look like plants.
Yeah.
But we still are studying the animals and the plants as to what can serve us best in our own healing journey. And so I personally work a lot with psychedelics, and a lot of my healing has come through that path. of working with plants that help us walk through different realms, open up deep portals, and communicate with ourselves in ways we don't have access to in the sober state. But you don't need to do psychedelics. Really, just sitting with a tree, with grass, outside, with intention. What we call medicine will come to you, and it'll be that feeling in the body first. So it takes practice if you're used to just using your mind. And that's okay. It's okay that it takes practice. It's okay to not get it right away. But I've told other people with analytical minds, you can use your analytical mind. If you decide to go sit with a tree or sit with the grass, just ask yourself, how do I feel that's different? What do I notice that's different? And you can track what you're feeling using your analytical mind to notice differences and variations and what's coming up. We're already receiving medicine from them, intelligence, wisdom from their breath. So you don't even have to consume any plants. You can just notice what plant draws your eye and just look at it for a while and track what you feel inside.
Yeah, but just from studying brain science right now, I do know that psychedelics help for overactive brain, which is
Mm-hmm.
that over-analyzing brain of yourself. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
good to try that and to disconnect, and just one session can have powerful healing effects. That is true. I'm not against it
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Well, I'll say this, medicine, we've used this term medicine, doesn't have to be physical, as I was just touching upon. When I'm really working with people and when I lead ceremonies, whether I'm working with a plant in that ceremony or doing a sober ceremony with a group, or even one-on-one where we don't consume any plants, we just are as we are in that moment and doing a very focused experience together. What I'm really teaching is that our energy is our master teacher or our main medicine in this lifetime. So, as we've been saying this whole time, your feelings, your responses, your reactions to the world around you, that's a first foundation of medicine. That's a first teacher to help you walk the path that feels the most alive to you. And it takes many, many turns and ups and downs and working through things. And we're never done with that path, which is what I also think is its true beauty. Like a professional athlete, if they stop doing the work to maintain their athleticism, it's going to fade. That those abilities are going to fade. So this sense of being the strongest as we can be inside to feel our power is an ongoing path that takes us to so many different incredible places. Just, actually climbing the mountain, but, emotionally climbing mountains that we never thought we'd be able to climb, and seeing vistas we never thought we'd be able to see right here in our own lives, in our own homes, in our own backyards.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about what you're studying right now, about becoming a death doula. I
Yeah.
remember that you were
Yeah.
talking about it those 5 years ago. You were considering, and now you're actually doing it. I think that I have mentioned also that I have been thinking about death a lot through our maybe private conversations, but even before. But do you know where that came from and how that evolved, if you were to trace back your interest?
Sure. I know a huge seed of it was planted when I had leukemia myself as a child. So I did almost die. I
Mhm.
was right on death's door for 2.5 years. I was pretty much almost dead for 2.5 years. So I got
Yeah.
very comfortable inside of that realm. But I did always have a natural curiosity about skeletons and burials and wounded animals. So I think it was perhaps a question I was born with on my soul, coming into human form was this perhaps a remembrance that we did come from somewhere. Not everybody has to believe that or take that belief on. And then my path, especially having leukemia as a child and almost dying, had me very comfortable with what we call darkness, what we call pain, what we call, I had a friend who passed away, so I was around who also had leukemia at the same age. So I got comfortable inside of that space and also received a lot of healing. I call it my first medicine ceremony, that time with leukemia and almost dying. And since then, there's been a deep sensitivity, I guess, to the preciousness of each person and a deep sensitivity to pain that they're going through. Because my leukemia was actually a way for me to try to process trauma that I didn't realize was trauma yet until actually very recently. So going through that very physical experience built up a deep sensitivity that each person is beautiful, each person is carrying pain in different ways, and kind of just wanting to be with them in that space. And perhaps early on it was to try to instill a sense of safety as someone who had kind of passed through it. And so where I'm at now, the desire to study it and eventually assist people crossing over, it feels like the most honorable place to be as a human is to both be the one dying and also be the one being with the dying, like holding space without judgment or fear of the dying. And the one actively dying is rapidly processing all this stuff we go through in life, rapidly coming into understanding that the grudges they held, the things they didn't do, all the things we deem as right or wrong, like that suddenly gets broken open because you're there, you're about to leave the body, you're about to actually walk away, as we've talked about. You're about to literally walk away from the war, from the abuse, from the pain, and also from the joy, it seems like, and from all the beauty we can experience as humans. You're about to leave that space. So you have this highly expanded perspective on what this whole life was. And so there's so much actual expansion in the self, in the spirit happening. And some of the people I've studied with who are actively working as death doulas, as they call them, and they do come from a more medical background. They said they've had to realize this is a spiritual process, and that's okay. We don't have to fear that death is not a medical process. It's this final evolution as a being, and you're rapidly healing all this stuff that you went through and putting pieces together and putting the puzzle together so you can pass over really in that highest sense of achievement, if you will. I did it. I really, really, really did it. And you go to the next place. So the being with the death connects me so deeply with the beauty, profound beauty of the moment now, and the preciousness and the divinity I see in each person I sit in front of, and helps me not judge whatever they're going through, and helps me understand that if whatever they're going through, even the deepest, ugliest struggle that has them at the lowest point they could be at, to see that as this incredibly powerful, amazing being sitting in front of me, having this human experience and all the wisdom inside of what they're going through. Again, that's going to serve this collective evolution. And that when they pass, all that wisdom, that energy is, especially in the body, the physical form gets put back into the earth. It's going to be serving everything that grows up out of the earth from where their body is buried, which breathes things out that we breathe in, which feeds animals, which we then eat, so all the wisdom we have inside ourselves gets stored as this energy inside this physical form, gets buried, and then feeds all the life that comes after it. And so it's such a powerful cycle to be really present with.
Just as you describe this process, I would say, the way you describe it speaks of you as the kind of coach I think anybody would feel really comfortable to work with and open up to and allow themselves to be intimate with, but not in a sexual way. But
Yeah.
that being said, you described, I would say, an ideal situation where somebody
Yeah.
has the time to die and
Yeah.
process and all
To
that.
die.
And
Yes.
yeah, and then I was also thinking about when you said every person is beautiful. Yes, but how about Putin? You know? But I know that
I
there's that
know.
little boy that I have read about, but still, you know.
I know. That's the hard part. We talked about earlier the sense of walking away from war,
Mhm.
and not letting the ego dictate is, yeah, what does that really mean to see each person as a vital part of our evolution on this planet, even the Putins, even the Trumps, even the, whoever, however people feel about these characters.
Mhm.
Because they're not hated by everybody. They're very revered by many. And the roles they're playing, they could only, or my personal belief is they can only become how they're being in the world because there's a collective agreement that that's real, that exists. Someone could behave that way. They're tapping into that collective wound and capitalizing on our own wound. And so, like an abusive relationship where we can be like, wait, hold on, there's something that really needs to be healed inside of me if I'm allowing this relationship. They're kind of doing that on the collective scale. They're providing that opportunity for us to be like, wait, hold on. And it's hard, of course, it's harder at that level because each person's on their own journey. And each person's processing what they're experiencing in this world differently. But yeah, in the ceremony, I talk a lot with the frequencies of things. And many people ask me about peace itself. Like, what does that mean? And peace, I got a message about peace. Like anything, like war is a frequency, peace is a frequency. And peace says, if you want to be at peace, be at peace. It's that
Yeah.
same concept of peace doesn't see why we can't be at peace. It sees the same world, the same setup, the same conflicts happening, and sees no reason to not be at peace because that's its frequency. Nothing will shake it out of it being what it truly is. So it just sees peace everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's that's something we're all learning, is like, how can I embody, if I want peace, how can I embody peace even when I'm witnessing war? And it's not a, that's, I personally don't feel that's, I mean, it's simple when you get it, but you have to be standing in that place to say it's simple. And none of us are actually standing in that place yet. We're all learning what that means through different trials and errors.
But you know what's funny? You are, no, I am also all about the body. It's just my background in linguistics and language and speaking and stuff like that. I start with the language and you start with
Yeah,
the body. But when I couldn't obtain that peace that you're talking about, I started eating fat, animal fat, and that calmed me
mm,
down. And I feel that I am actually at peace. I have been
beautiful.
for at least a year, so peaceful.
That's amazing. That's
Since we
that's
last talked,
fantastic.
I think we talked a year ago.
Yeah, just about.
Sometimes simple things that you don't realize, just if it doesn't work one way, like you said, something that you
Yeah,
got you here would keep you maybe here, but not allow you to go further.
yeah,
We need to try other stuff that we didn't realize that we need to try.
yeah, yeah.
Mark, who would be a good candidate for working with you as a coach?
Um, Someone who really wants to master their internal realm. And that can sound very spiritual, but that can be, I want to feel more control at work. I want to feel more at peace in my relationship. I want to understand why I've provided all of this for myself, my family, but I still feel out of control personally, or going through physical symptoms that I'm not sure what's going on yet. I'm not a medical doctor, but we can start to explore the emotional attachments that are inside of that. So someone who's really ready to take what I call radical responsibility for how they experience their life and decide that they are the captain of their experience and wants to really know what that means in all different aspects of life.
And you offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching?
Yeah, mainly one-on-one coaching. If you are
Mhm.
in a relationship and you want to do both of you in sessions together, I work that way. How I work in groups currently is in this ceremonial aspect. And much of that is sober. It's not always with plants. And so those are short, 1 day experiences, but there's coaching before and there's coaching after to help prep and to help integrate the experience that we're having. So people can reach out and ask about any of those aspects. I'm really interested in a ceremony experience. I'm really interested in one-on-one coaching, or we can just see what's going on with you and sort of find the format that feels like it'll be most supportive.
And obviously you coach over the internet, but if there is plant medicine involved, where are you located?
I'm in New York, in the New York, New Jersey area.
How can people find you?
Yeah, they can send me an email. I'm redoing my website as I told Ilze. It should be up and running early next year, but there are websites connected to other sections of my work that I think you'll be posting with this.
Mhm.
But if people just want to reach out personally, they can send me an email. So my email is my name a little bit deconstructed. My name's Mara Lee Gilbert. So my email is Lee, LEEMA, and then Gilbert at gmail.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Mar. It was such a pleasure to reconnect with
Yeah,
you.
yes. This was such a gift. I'm so glad you asked me. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Always a
And
pleasure
Ilze,
for me.
you're
Sorry.
yourself such a wealth of wisdom and experience and safe space and beautiful guidance for others. It's I always feel honored to sit with you.
Oh, thank you so much.